It's time for a reality check.
We're here to deconstruct health and fitness trends and provide tangible advice so you can become 1% better with each choice starting today. Welcome back to Reality Check. We're your hosts, Jess and Jill, and today might be, Jess and I love a good controversial topic, and we try to keep up, I guess, for lack of a better word, with some of the things that end up trending on social media to, of course, give our 2 cents, but also because Reality Check at the end of the day, we'd like to present all information, all angles, and let you make your own judgment and opinion and conclusion from what's out there in the world. I think it's super easy to get stuck in a rabbit hole. We've talked a lot about the controversy, or for lack of a better word, of like seed oils, and people are like, it always feels like you have to pick a camp where either you don't care about seed oils and they don't have any impact, or it's all you care about, and if you don't care about them, you suck. And it's like, you don't have to be in on one side or the other. And it's a similar concept today where we're talking about allostatic load. The reason that we're talking about this is with all of the Tylenol and autism stuff floating around on the internet today. And again, it feels like there's a lot of shame in both directions about this. And we want to just present this, I think, in a little bit of a different way. That's more neutral, because you can, and you don't have to love Tylenol or hate Tylenol ultimately, but we want to give some science and context behind where a lot of this is coming from. And I think that helps give some clarity on all topics, but this one specifically. So,
and I think that this is off topic of us as health coaches. But I want to address it first because I've seen a lot of emotionally charged language on social media around like shame, guilt, or this assumption. And I've not ever seen somebody say something like this, but I've seen people assume that people think this. Like, I've seen people post things saying like, just because my child is autistic or a child is autistic, it doesn't make them any less valuable. It doesn't mean they have a disorder. It doesn't mean this. They were born this way. Okay. We absolutely, like, the truth is that every single child deserves to be loved and celebrated and supported exactly as they are. So just because we want to be able to help spread information that is like for preventive health measures so that a child can live a more fulfilled, happy, healthy life does not mean that that child is any lesser, right? So I think we want to say that up front. Autism, ADHD, autoimmune conditions are a huge stress burden on that child, on the family, on the community, on the teachers. That doesn't mean that that child doesn't deserve all that love and support and health services and interventions at schools. Those children deserve that support. And we can also say, okay, what can we do to allow them to heal? If there are opportunities to either prevent or allow healing, why are we not also digging into every single avenue so that they can live healthier, more fulfilling lives? I hope that I said that correctly and I'm not stepping on any toes in the way. I'm trying to be very careful of how I message because it's so important that every single child and every single mother feels loved and supported, and that there's no shame or guilt on mothers at all. We just are really adamant on educating for general health because there are trickle-down effects physically and cognitive health-wise to any of our inputs, right? For all of us, for adults, in our own inputs in our own bodies, right? There are health trickle downs. We absolutely do not know the cause of something like autism. There's no data that supports
one cause.
A cause. But almost all of these things that I'm mentioning, in addition to, again, chronic disease and conditions that adults have right now, diabetes, Alzheimer's, heart disease, all these things, almost all of them don't have one single cause, right? There's maybe genetic predispositions. And then there's this compiled effect of inputs throughout a person's life that then turn on this trigger of whatever the disease is, right? So That's what we want to get at is, okay, nobody can claim causation. That would be ridiculous. What are things that we can do to support our children's overall toxic load in their body to prevent lots of different things or heal lots of different things?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm always down for digging deeper and getting more data on any population of humans if it helps them manage whatever they have going on in life and just make their quality of life better. I think, of course, like, yeah, no brainer. I support that. So I think that's great. And I agree. There's a lot of like blame and shame and back and forth. And there's also a lot of unknown. And I think that's where a lot of that stems from. None of us know everything and none of us have all of these answers. And there's so much research into a lot of this stuff when it comes to our health. I think that social media is so beautiful that we have access to things like this to let us question things, because that's important as humans, for us to question things and make our own judgment calls and collect our own data and come up with our own opinions and thoughts on things. Sometimes that's based on our intuitions and our feelings. Sometimes that's based on a little bit of data. It's usually obviously a combination, but ultimately, like Jess and I said, we're just, because this topic has come up, we are presenting the information today as like, hey, this is really at the root of all of this, what we care about and the message that we want to share, in terms of like context and, again, optimizing your health, living with a better quality of life for yourself, for your kids. Yeah. And if we have access to this information, then we want to share it. So I think I was going to say, I think that we can say, like, foundationally, if you've been listening to our podcast, you probably know a lot of the times we're always talking about nuances here, but at the end of the day, we always string you back to like core foundational
health habits.
And habits, and what your inputs look like in taking care of yourself. So some of this is a little bit more nuanced, but we want to give like granular things and big picture. So I want to make sure I'm clear on that again, this isn't coming from a place of like, you should be doing all of these things and checking all of these boxes all the time. This is more of like zooming out in big picture and understanding what inputs can have influence. It's like a lot of times when people talk about eating organic and that's useless, or changing your household products to non-toxic, or how can you say, people come at me, right? How can you put Botox and filler in your face and then say you only use clean products? And it's like, because none of us are perfect, but
you're weighing risk and reward.
Yeah.
And you're weighing risk and reward. It kills me watching all these women that are sharing videos of them pregnant, popping, look, I'm having Tylenol and I'm fine.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's dumb. Like, if you don't need Tylenol,
that's like saying I smoked cigarettes and didn't get lung cancer. Okay, it doesn't mean cigarettes
doesn't mean that there's no
it
doesn't mean that there's no trickle down effect, but also you need to weigh the risk and reward. If Jill is choosing to get Botox, even though there might be some sort of health risk, she's making that choice, educated on it, right? So that's our point, is we want informed consent and actual education going out about all of these different choices, so that it's not a black and white thing, because it's not a black and white thing. I am not pregnant, and most of the time, if I have cramps during my period or a really bad headache, I don't take Tylenol or ibuprofen most of the time, because I don't think that my liver needs an extra load of medication that it has to process if it's not something that is debilitating. If there are debilitating cramps and I can't get up and go to the grocery store or go about my life, I take the freaking ibuprofen, right? So, and that's me not being pregnant. I'm weighing that risk reward in those little choices day after day, right? We talk about this with food all the time. The donut might be worth it for me on a Saturday morning special occasion where me and the kids are going and each picking them out from the Amish market, and it's a fun family thing, right? It's worth it for the social occasion of it. It's worth it for the memories. For my health bank account, it's not worth it, right? But I'm making that choice. And every single choice has some sort of trickle down consequence, good or bad. And that's all we want, is for everybody to make their own choices in an educated way, or educated with your doctor also being educated and not being biased or politically motivated, even if it's unconscious. I think a lot of times if the messenger is shitty, which in our current case is the case, right? With the leader of our country right now, the message ends up diluting the value of what could actually be a bipartisan good message because the messenger is really shitty. So like,
the way
I think
it's
that's
coming
what's happening.
across is not.
It's inappropriate. Yeah, it's inappropriate. It makes people feel bad. Like it's just not, it's not effective. It's not helpful in the way that it's being messaged. So,
Yeah.
okay. So what is allostatic
load.
load?
Yeah, I was going to say you kick that off because I know this was like kind of the angle that you presented. Like this is what I want to share. So you kick us off with allostatic load, and then obviously we'll get into all the context of that.
Okay, so allostatic load is like the scientific term for cumulative wear and tear on our bodies. It is stress and toxic burden and all these things that just keep piling on. So, an example that I give our clients is like we want to balance this scale of stress to recovery. Lots of different things can be stressors, even good things, right? Exercise is a stressor that we ought to be able to adapt to. We don't want to just remove all the stressors in our life. We shouldn't have to do that. But our bodies do adapt to the inputs that we give it. An Olympic athlete has way more stress on their body than the average person. If I had an average working mom who trained like an Olympic athlete, honestly, some of them who do CrossFit 5-6 days a week, their stress to recovery buckets are not balanced because they're so stressed out. Those Olympic athletes, to meet that level of stress, have way more recovery than the average person. They get massage and sauna and cupping and they sleep 12 hours a night, right? To match that level of stress. So what we are talking about is this cumulative burden of stressors that add up eventually lead to inflammation systemically and chronic disease. So also, I say chronic disease because the common ones that are in there, right? Heart disease, cancer, diabetes, dementia is now being called type 3 diabetes. All of these things can tip that scale. Well, there's also cognitive effects to systemic inflammation. So ADHD, memory fog, what I know I'm missing, anxiety, depression, all of these things can be turned on through these actual physical inputs in our body can result in these brain changes. So to ignore the fact that our body does accumulate toxic overload a little bit when we put in pharmaceuticals, alcohol, caffeine, Tylenol, whatever all these things are, they contribute to this stress burden in our body that eventually there could be a tipping point. Okay. So again, one thing does not create the disease or the whatever the condition is. All these things cumulatively add up. Now, in our world right now, we have way more of these cumulative stressors. We're stressed because our circadian rhythm is ruined by staring at our phones all day. We are stressed because our diet is more heavily processed and our even if we do eat fruits and veggies, a lot of our our soil is depleted of nutrients. There's air and water pollution. There's fluoride in our water, our public water sources. There are heavy metals that are in some of our medicines and vaccines because they're shelf stabilizers. In small doses, none of these things alone should be an issue. So when the FDA approves something and says like, well, yeah, it's there's some aluminum in that, but it's a very small dose. Yeah, that's fine on a healthy system, right? We should be able to process that. Our liver should be able to detox itself, right? At a certain point, our livers become congested and then there begins to be systemic inflammation symptoms. Again, at which point then our metabolisms start getting all out of whack and now this tipping point of disease can be turned on. So that's kind of my overall allostatic load. The more stress burdens we add on the body over time, the more likely we are to kind of build that up. We can then bring that back down by doing specific detox protocols or by reducing stress in our life or by adding recovery modalities. We talk a lot about deep breathing, going for walks. Like that sounds silly, right? It sounds like what a basic thing to say, go walk in nature, but that actually can bring down our internal systemic stress, put us back in rest and recovery mode. So there's lots of different things that we can do to bring that burden down. And again, it's a matter of weighing the pros and the cons. I will talk about this in terms of my own choices. I am not judging anybody's choices to vaccinate or not vaccinate your children. I have chosen to follow the doctor recommended schedule of vaccinating my children. One of my children has autoimmune symptoms, and it can only be tied to those times that we've gone through this. Like, her symptoms have gotten worse. I'm still choosing to continue the vaccinations, but I will be delaying them until she has to get the rest when she starts school. Now, what am I doing in the meantime? We're adding glutathione. We are adding vitamin D for her immune system. I actually got
her food quality is also freaking
her
beautiful.
food quality is excellent, and I did a stool test that showed her gut. Typically, a lot of times, autoimmune triggers can be turned on from a gut microbiome issue. Her gut is beautiful. It's like her gut is actually probably protecting her from not having worse symptoms. Her results were so good because of her diet. However, there's some sort of toxic burden, or this would not be happening. So I actually just ordered an HTMA test. I'm going to do a heavy metals test and see if she is high in heavy metals from whatever reason. Okay, we can call it whatever you want. Then I'm going to be able to specifically detox those things out of her body with a 28 easy day protocol. And then hopefully we don't have these symptoms anymore where she's in chronic pain. How cool that we have resources like that available, but nobody talks about them. Again, I'm not anti this thing, but this thing might have had a little bit more of a burden on this kid's system versus this other kid's system, which is my other daughter's totally fine from it, right? So again, educating on, well, what do you do with it if there are issues? Wow, how cool could that be to help watch your kid not suffer in pain anymore, right? So, okay. And again, I
want to give another angle of that really quick, because we talk about a lot about physique and weight loss and other things on here. So women come to me a lot. We hear this line all the time of well, I did exactly what I did before. And last time I lost all this weight and this time I didn't. Right. And there are women who reach this point. A lot of times they're oh, age, my metabolism's slowing down because I'm 35, because I'm 40, because I'm in menopause, whatever. And there is not this magic point where you wake up on your 40th birthday and your body's oh, it's been 40 years, biological clock, I'm going to start slowing things down. A lot of people feel that way, but it's because of this cumulative buildup of poor inputs, chronic dieting, low calorie intake, maybe poor food quality, whatever it is, right? But it's completely different for every person. Everyone's body has a different amount, a different level of stress, allostatic load, metabolic impact, right? There are people that are I saw this argument recently and I was oh my God, I can't believe we're doing this. But somebody was talking about, well, I eat all processed foods. And really, if you think about it, all foods are processed. So it doesn't matter if you eat more whole foods or not, because I eat processed foods and I feel great. And I'm that's saying you did crack yesterday.
Who smoke cigarettes and live to be 105. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. You did drugs and you didn't die. It doesn't mean people can't die from that. So you have to have the full context for these things is also I just, again, wanted to give a little bit of a different angle or additional context, I think that's great. To that. Because I think it's important.
The metabolic things that you're talking about, our metabolism processes toxic stuff that we put in our bodies, right? So when I'm talking specifically about pharmaceutical medications or non-pharmaceutical supplements and stuff that aren't FDA approved, all that stuff, I'm not just talking about that. The food that you put in your body can create this toxic overload. Being really unhealthy and sedentary and not having enough muscle mass and not having a good cardio capacity, all of this stuff adds to that cumulatively. Not getting enough sleep. So the basics that we talk about in terms of overall health are still the biggest rocks. If you do that stuff, your body will be more tolerant to getting rid of and disposing of the things in the healthy way that it was intended to. If you neglect all this stuff and then you add these other things on top of it, that your body's already tipping that scale in the unhealthy, inflammatory type direction. So again, it doesn't mean, oh, I'm never going to take any medicines. That's stupid. If I have an infection, I'm going to take an antibiotic. But guess what? Now taking this antibiotic is throwing off my gut health a little bit, right? So I'm weighing risk to reward. I'm not just popping. I was on antibiotics every day as a child for kidney issues. I'm not going to do that to my kids because I know that the risk outweighs the reward on doing that, right? But I'm going to use antibiotics when appropriate, right? So anyway, yes, the problem here for me is perfectly safe narrative. Well, it's perfectly safe to take when you're pregnant. There are literally tweets from the company Tylenol in 2017, I think it was, saying, no, we don't recommend Tylenol for pregnant women. If you need it, then it's the safest, it's the lesser of evils.
I took Zofran during pregnancy. My doctor, my OB through my pregnancy was like, let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. She was like, I want to try every avenue because I don't love Zofran as a first line of defense because right now the risks don't outweigh the benefits for you. I was so sick that I was hospitalized for dehydration. I couldn't keep a fucking Ritz cracker down. I was sick and could not function anymore in my day-to-day life at 8 weeks pregnant. She was like, now we need Zofran. Literally, she was like, okay, here's a Zofran pill. I threw the Zofran pill up and she was like, now you need dissolvable because I need to get this in your system because now I am concerned about.
Because the rewards are, yeah.
But she did not want me on that class of drug during my pregnancy unless I absolutely had to be. So again, yeah, take Tylenol if there is a reason that you need Tylenol, and it's pros and cons always. You have to weigh out what do all of these factors look like in that scenario. But again, zooming out and saying these are what all these other inputs look like. I feel like I could go and we could do this all day and I could go so many directions here. But anyway, you have to look pros and cons of that one thing and also big picture. How does this impact short-term versus long-term, and is this worth it?
Context, dosage, frequency, the individual person, that individual person's risk. Like you said, if you're now suffering from dehydration while pregnant, okay, that's more dangerous than this short-term consequence or whatever the long-term burden is of the Zofran, right? This goes for Tylenol, coffee, crappy processed foods, energy drinks, vaccines, all of these things.
I definitely thought you were going to say crack instead of crappy foods.
No, crappy foods. Crack, I think we can all agree, is just like probably not worth it. It's probably not worth it. Okay, guys, just say no. Just say no.
Please say no to drugs.
So anyway, all of them, I don't think any of them should be framed as perfectly safe or perfectly unsafe. It's all about context, right? I put this in my social media post about this the other day, but for me, this is very, very a mirror image of what we went through a few years ago with the COVID vaccine. I have a blood clotting disorder where I am more likely to have a pulmonary embolism than other people because it's a genetic factor that I have. They gave me, what are they called? Blood thinners postpartum both times because, hey, after having a baby, your risk of having a clot is higher. I am a really bad candidate for the COVID vaccine. Yet during pregnancy, my OBGYN spent at least 2 40-minute appointments trying to convince me why I should get it. Personally, she was not looking at the risk to reward of me and my genetic blood clotting risk because there was reported cases of people having increased risk of blood clots. For someone who is obese or older with a comorbidity who already has a disease, the reward outweighs the risk. They should have gotten that vaccine based on what we knew at the time, right? So it's not a good or bad thing. It's whoa, why are we not zooming out and looking at the whole person and weighing risk to reward?
Absolutely. And I think that's the message that we give across the board, maybe not as directly when we're always talking about weight loss and protein and when to diet, when not to diet. We're constantly like, this is what we do with clients, right? When they have a problem, we say, okay, this could be the best and the fastest solution, but that might not be feasible for that person. So we look at all of our options and weigh the pros and cons and clients, right? They're like, I think I have gut issues, but I desperately want to lose 20 pounds. We're constantly like, okay, let's pick a lane. Let's weigh the pros and cons. What do you want to focus on first, right? So like, truly, we are just challenging everyone to think critically, especially because people are very persuasive on the internet. If people speak confidently, we tend to believe them more wholeheartedly. So it is the world of AI. It is super easy to create a narrative and run fast with it. So we are just trying to challenge in this current climate and environment to think critically, pause, take a second. Also for the sake of being nicer to humans, does this apply to me? Do I really need to argue with this person? Is this worth it, right? Like there's so many reasons to just digest, step back, think about it, maybe do a little bit of research. And that's always—
and when we say research, we mean like look up. It's so easy now. You have AI at your fingertips, guys. Ask AI and say, hey, can you give me summaries of the actual research articles about ABCD and read them yourself? Again, I tend to go and actually look up the abstract of the study and see, oh, well, what was the control groups and how many people were involved in the study? Was it a
When was
meta-analysis?
this? What was
Was
the
it on people
population?
or rats? Like, I tend to go look at that directly. Research is not going on the internet and following the algorithms that are shoved your way based on your already existing biases. Okay, so a big thing here is the problem is the system. I believe that every single healthcare provider, I would hope, has great intentions. They're getting into the field of being nurses and doctors because they want to help people. The pediatricians are not out here saying, oh, we don't care about your kid's health, so we're just going to pump them with medicine. They're not. They are in the job of healing symptoms, and that's how our system has been built. If there is an emergency, I want to bring my kid to the ER to get treatment right then to save their life, or to Jill just had her son just had to get surgery for a broken arm on vacation. She needs that medical system to.
I'm not like, let's heal this naturally.
Right, like
no.
we
All
need
needs is bone back in place.
we need the medical system to fix immediate symptoms. However, the system right now, as it currently stands, is not built for preventive medicine. It is not
built to create health. It was built to manage disease.
correct. So when we're getting our information about prevention from people who were only educated on treatment, it's a backwards system. And that advice I'm not taking. Again, I think that their intentions are good, but oh my gosh, I hope she doesn't listen to this because I really love this person as a person. But like one of my kids she threw up a couple times and the doctor thinks it's acid reflux. The first thing that she recommends is, oh, give her Prilosec for 2 months and her body will heal itself. I'm like, well, I know that Prilosec is just going to actually suppress her natural stomach acid. Like usually kids have stomach acid when they don't produce enough, and then they come off of Prilosec and the issue actually becomes worse. I just shook my head and okay, thanks, doc. And I went home and I am dealing with it a different way. And she hasn't had issues in a couple weeks.
But do you know what's sad is how many people won't do that. And this is why we are also sending the message of question everything in a healthy, unbiased way. Hey, can you tell me why this is your first line of defense? What can I expect short-term, long-term? Like, it sounds so annoying and silly. And like, it is exhausting to have to do that, quite frankly. But unfortunately, that is, again, the current climate, environment, and the way that the system was set up, which is why Jess and I are like two humans trying to do our best out here, you know?
And again, I'm not mad at that provider because she is doing her best to treat the symptom, right? So if my kid, she hasn't thrown up since, if she continued to throw up, okay, that's a great idea to give her Tums or whatever antacid in that moment to get her not getting sick at school so she can stay in school, right? Like it does do the trick for the short-term prevention. I am interested in long-term healing of the problem so that when she comes off of the antacid, it doesn't get worse, right? So again, just zooming out and saying like, okay, short-term, is it worth it? Maybe the answer is yes right now. Long-term, I probably need another game plan. What's actually the root cause here?
Mm-hmm. One of the other messages that we give clients and certainly our children is like, are worth it versus not worth it, or if I want to make this decision, how does it make me feel? And that's in the context of food, of socially, of anything in life, right? We talk about planning for your future self, right? And again, always looking at like short-term, long-term, big picture, and zooming in, whatever. So there are times where like one of the things that we've been navigating recently is like birthday parties or sporting events where the snacks come out, right? And I'm like, oh my God, my kid's about to eat a freaking Twinkie, for God's sakes. He's never had this in his life. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that is one thing that I choose to do less.
Monitor a little, yeah.
My niece, she drinks a lot of soda. Love her. That is a decision that my sister makes, and that's fine. I don't choose. There is no soda in our household. That's not something Mason orders at dinner. It's not even really a sometimes thing. Those are the kind of scenarios where you have to like pick and choose and weigh things out. Mason doesn't generally, we take alternatives from Advil and Tylenol, not because of this debate and autism and whatever. It's just, based on my research of like food dyes and ingredients and other things, we just choose not to use those. However, he just got his humerus snapped back into place he's been taking Advil and Tylenol every 3 hours around the clock for the last 4 days
because it's
he's
worth
in
it right
pain.
now. It's
He
worth
needs
it
to get
now.
through his day, function as a human. That pain's not going to be there forever. It's temporary. He takes a lot of gut support. That's constantly what we're doing when we're talking about these topics. Same with like the vaccine talk. I'm glad you like touched on it a little bit. That's really what this is about, truly, is just weighing the pros and cons.
And don't argue with people who have a different experience, right? Like just because the COVID vaccine did not make sense for me based on what I know about my body and my risk for clots and the fact that I am healthy. I had natural antibodies at the time. I went and got it tested to show my doctor, like, I was pregnant. I'm not going to test this on my body. It didn't make sense for me. I was not judging people who were choosing to get it, who it made sense for, right? So don't assume that the person who chooses something different than you doesn't also have good intent. They have good intent too, and they're coming from a different place, right? So let's try to educate rather than judge, regardless of other people's choices.
100%. And that also brings us just a little more peace and love in the world. Some of these arguments on the internet are crazy. And guess what? When I'm looking at allostatic load, I will be the first one to say I used to love a good argument and to read these comments. I actually have taken, and Jess, you were just talking about this too, a huge step back from scrolling on social media the last couple of weeks because I'm like, whoa, the negativity on social media right now is so overwhelming that like it is way too much.
It's impacting my regular life where I just removed Facebook from my phone altogether in September. Like it's just overwhelming.
If there's good stress, bad stress, I was like, whoa, this is having way too much of an impact. I need to like go outside.
And if you have interactions with these,
I need a hike. Yeah.
If you have interactions with these people in real life, we agree on more than we disagree on. Almost all of us would say, oh, well, I'm coming from this with a good intention. Oh, you're coming from it with good intentions. We're just coming at it from different angles. And then we're getting polarized because of the internet. So like step off of the internet and breathe some fresh air. Anyway, what can we do? Call to action. Practical steps that you can take to reduce allostatic load, period. You can reduce your exposures to chemicals when possible. If you have a little headache that's nagging, but you feel like you're okay, you're okay. You don't have to take the medicine for pain management right away. My best friend actually works for a marketing agency, and Advil was one of her customers. And she said it was funny because she was supporting their South America division, and they had a completely different ad campaign because in America, our tendency is, oh, we got to take it, have no pain to get through the day. In other countries, they don't take that perspective. They're like, oh, well, I'm going to work through the pain because pain is part of life. And like in America, we have this quick fix gratification thing. It was interesting while they were working the ad campaigns because they had to do completely different campaigns for their South America versus the US. But reduce that exposure. Like the fever symptoms typically are giving us a sign that something else is going on. Sometimes it's worth kind of living through that discomfort a little bit. Sometimes it's not, and that's okay, but you can reduce your exposures. Second, and that goes for other toxins too, like don't microwave plastic, like things like that, right? You're putting that stuff in your body also. But nutrition, eat more whole foods, drink a lot of water, increase protein and fiber, get more sleep, optimize your circadian rhythm by going to bed at the same time and waking up and seeing sunshine instead of staring at bright lights at night. Stress management, this tips that scale that I'm talking about, right? We can't always remove all our stressors, but we can add recovery modalities. We could spend time in nature, breath work, play, being present in our life helps our brain say, oh, we're safe. And movement and exercise, right? Physically, exercise helps circulate toxic stuff and get it out of our system. When we sweat, we get rid of stuff. If we can speed up our metabolism by adding muscle also, that speeding up our metabolism is processing everything in a I want to say more efficient, but in a faster way that helps our body stay healthier. So all of these things create a more resilient system rather than feeling the need to worry and nitpick because I'm going to have my seed oils on my pad thai takeout, guys. Like just because it adds a little bit of that inflammatory load, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to build this resilient system so I can get away with that sometimes, right? So I can have the donut sometimes so that my body doesn't respond poorly when I really need the Tylenol. So that's it. We want to really promote advocacy around better research funding, informed consent, and not choosing sides or trying to remain unbiased, regardless of your own personal choices. But really, just parents should have the ability to make educated choices with full context, not fear-based messaging in either direction. I got a lot of fear-based pushing when I was pregnant through both of my pregnancies were during the COVID time. And I got a lot of fear-based pushing from the medical system that really turned me off, because it wasn't logical. And I read the research studies and I brought them in to show them to my doctor and say, is this the one you're referring to? Let's talk about it. And it's sad because most people don't have the education to be able to look into that stuff. So we need a system that supports that so that we're educating people in a more responsible way.
Love it. Anything else?
No, thank you for listening to our rant. Hopefully everybody stayed until the end. I don't know.
We'll see if anyone wants to fight us on Instagram later.
I can't imagine who disagrees that we should love all the children. We should give grace to the moms. The moms are freaking trying. We are trying our best and we are all overwhelmed. And the people who have children with chronic illness have it so much harder. So we need to give them extra love and support. And the education is coming from a place of compassion, not from a place of judgment at all.
Absolutely. That is all for this episode, and we will see you guys next time.